God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The oath of office will now be administered to the 5 board members. Board members, please raise your right hand and recite the oath of office as members of the Board of Education.
I, Kelly Barry, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as trustee of the Board of Education of the Rockville Center Union Free School District according to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Nominations will now be accepted for president. Are there any nominations for president?
I nominate John O'Shea.
Mr. O'Shea is nominated for president. Are there any other nominations for president? Okay. There being no further nominations, I will call the vote. All in favor of Mr. O'Shea for president, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, signify by saying nay. Motion carried unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. O'Shea. Would you please raise your right hand and take your oath of office as president of the Board of Education?
I, John O'Shea, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as president of the Board of Education of the Rockville Center Union Free School District according to the best of my ability.
Thank you. I now turn the meeting over to the President of Board of Education, Mr. O'Shea. The meeting is yours.
All right. May I have a nomination for the vice president?
I nominate Kelly Barry.
I nominate Christine Farazani.
If there are no further nominations, I will call a vote. All in favor for Christine Farazani for vice president, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay. No.
All in favor for Kelly Barry for vice president, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying nay.
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 The vote is for Christine Farazani,
The vote is 3-2.
3-2 for Christine Farazani.
Ms. Farazani, could you please raise your right hand and take the oath of office as Vice President of the Board of Education?
I, Christine Farazani, do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of New York, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Vice President of the Board of Education of the Rockville Center Union Free School District according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
May I have a nomination for the secretary?
I nominate Kelly Barry.
There being no further nominations, I'll call a vote. All in favor of Kelly Barry for secretary of the Board of Education, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carried unanimously.
Mrs. Barry, could you please raise your right hand and take the office as Secretary of the Board of Education?
I, Kelly Barry, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as Secretary of the Board of Education of the Rockville Center Union Free School District according to the best of my ability.
Okay, I need a nomination to appoint the Board of Education as the Audit Committee for the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of appointing the Board of Education as the Audit Committee signify by saying aye.
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 Audit Committee, would you please raise your right hands and take the oath of office?
I, Kelly Barry, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the Audit Committee of the Rockville Center Union Free School District according to the best of my ability.
The district clerk will now swear in the superintendent of schools, Mr. June Chang.
Superintendent Chang, would you please raise your right hand and take the oath of office?
I, June Chang, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as Superintendent of Schools of the Rockville Center Union Free School District according to the best of my ability.
I need a motion to appoint Ms. Celebrity as the district clerk for the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of appointing Ms. Celebrity as the district clerk signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ms. Celebrity, would you please raise your right hand and take the oath of office?
I, Mary Lou Ciliberti, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as District Clerk of the Rockville Center Union Free School District according to the best of my ability.
Are you leaving?
I'll stay.
Thank you.
You're leaving.
We're not letting you leave.
May I have a motion to appoint Ms. Lalo as treasurer for the 2021-2022 school year?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And you'll be sworn in at another time?
No,
No,
she's
we're gonna
right
do it
here.
right
Oh,
She
you didn't
came.
think she was going to be here. I'm
You
like
can ask her
confused
to take her
about
oath
it.
of
Okay.
office.
Ms. Lalo, please raise your right hand and recite the oath of office.
I, Veronica Lalo, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as treasurer of the Rockville Center Union Free School District according to the best of my ability.
May I have a motion to appoint Mr. Bartels as deputy treasurer for the 2021-2022 school year?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Can you so move and second the same person?
It was me and it was
I
Kelly.
Oh, didn't-
second it.
I'm sorry. All in favor of Mr. Bartels as deputy treasurer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Bartels, please raise your right hand and recite the oath of office.
I, Robert Bartels, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as Deputy Treasurer of the Rockville Center Union Free School District according to the best of my ability.
All right, before we do a motion to approve the rest, there are some questions. I'd rather take the questions before we approve it and have the questions after we approve. So does anybody have any questions or concerns about the remainder of the nobody?
I do. In terms of the school district attorney, I would like to make a motion that we have a request for proposal to look for a school district attorney, and that we appoint Ingerman Smith as an interim attorney until that time.
Comments from the rest of the board?
I'm okay with going out for the RFP, but why do we need the word interim? If it's going to be, I think as it reads now, if we terminate, it will just be retro.
Well, in the letter of engagement, there's a retainer included in that.
Right.
So the way I've watched other people from other boards do it, they use the term interim whenever they're appointing someone who is not going to be permanent. And Ingerman Smith is under a duty to continue to represent us for anything that we have as an open matter currently. So we're protected there. If we appoint them as interim, they can be our attorneys for anything that might come up until the RFP process is finished. It's my understanding from speaking to Mr. Bartels, who's the expert on the RFP process, that this doesn't take that long of a time. I just asked what the process is. So having gone through it with other RFPs, it shouldn't take that long for us to figure out which attorney we are going to go with, if we stay with Ingerman Smith or choose a different attorney. But for now, appointing an interim attorney seems to be the appropriate course of action.
Understood. I was curious as to why if we can terminate Ingerman or decide, let's say we go out to the RFP process and we decide not to continue with Ingerman, is the word interim necessary, or would it just carry over until we decide to go, if we decide to go with someone else?
I just think it's the appropriate terminology, and in terms of what, this is called a letter of engagement, what most people refer to as a retainer. fee, and then it gets prorated per month as they work for us. We don't need to bind ourselves to that retainer when we're going out to see what we can get for legal services. So that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with me, but that's my opinion.
I also don't agree with using the term interim. It makes a predetermination that we will go through the RFP process and not select Ingerman in the end. I think that we are approving counsel so that we have coverage, because as of today, we would not have coverage. So we need coverage, period. We can terminate it at any time. Saying interim is making a predetermination that we are not choosing them, and I don't think it's necessary. We've had a longstanding good history with Ingerman. I've been pleased working with them as a president. I appreciate what they've done for us, and I think if we're going through an RFP process interview, fair enough, but no reason to make that claim from out of the gate that we are not staying with them, which is what interim actually means.
No, interim doesn't mean that. Interim means they'd be taking over in the meantime, and that we are putting it out for counsel in the future, which is what I think we're deciding to do. In addition, without having a full public discussion about our representation, there have been many issues that have come up in our discussions this year with regard to our representation. And so your opinion is noted, but that's not everyone's opinion.
I know neither is yours, so I'm just making a note that interim is not a necessary term.
I believe it is.
Okay, that's your opinion.
Erica? Anything?
No, I agree with going out to the RFP and taking a look at what's out there, what our options are, and what's in the best interest of the district.
Any opinion on interim or?
The word interim, I think if we're going out to look at what our options are, if we are not installing them as our attorney, it would make sense to use the term. However, it doesn't mean that we're not going to ultimately, or that they're not ultimately going to be reemployed if they are the best choice and best fit for the district. In my line of work, the word interim can mean that you're there as a placeholder. It could also mean it's just a temporary and you'll ultimately end up staying there. So I'm fine with using the word interim.
I'd like to see us go out to bid also. I think it's important for us to just hear what other firms offer and just compare what they say they will offer as opposed to what we get. I'm sure Ingerman will also give us a presentation, and I agree that I would feel more comfortable appointing them as an interim because they may or may not be our permanent placement, and when that happens, we can, we'll deal with that at that point. So we'll just call a vote from the board as whether or not to change the wording to interim as opposed to appointing.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are you considering changing the language of the resolution, or are you considering changing the language, Ingerman Smith changing the language in the contract? Because that would be two different things.
And point of order, Madam Vice President already made a motion with interim, did you not?
I made a motion that we go out for an RFP and that we change the relationship to interim.
So is that two separate
So
things?
that's
So
what
you're
we're,
going to have to take a motion on two separate things, and then the contract cannot be officially initiated until Ingerman Smith returns that back with appropriate wording.
Right, because then you're not going to have a contract that you're approving.
Right. I had asked that that be removed in a meeting that we had for this purpose. They're bound to represent us on any open matter that we have, so we're not without counsel. And if anything came up tomorrow, the next day, whatever day, until we sign this interim agreement or we hire a permanent attorney, there are plenty of attorneys that we could seek to hire for whatever the issue is.
How come we haven't asked for the superintendent's recommendation about this?
Because it's the board's duty to hire the school attorney.
And it is the board's duty to take the recommendations of administration into account when we make decisions.
We knew what the...
I think it's important to hear what our superintendent has to say. Whether or not we decide to go with what he has to say is a different story. But the input of administration helps make a board make a final decision, and I'd like to hear it.
We had the input when you called an executive session and made this in behind closed doors when it should have been a public discussion in the first place.
There were matters that we were talking about specifically, legal matters that were talked about in executive session that were not appropriate for public.
That's true, one.
That is-
And then the rest of the conversation was
Various.
on this issue.
I'd like to hear what Mr. Chang has to say.
As a point of order through the president,
Yes, Mr. Chang.
I don't see an issue with the wording. I think the relationship, as I've stated many times before, I think the history is something that you want to hold on to. I think the termination part prorates you. I think it protects you from any other additional fees that you're going to take. I also wouldn't want to go back and have to reapprove during the course of the middle of the year if you decide to stay with Ingram and Smith. I think it allows you to have a seamless kind of transition in that sense without having to put another motion on. But I think it's entirely appropriate to have it the way, and it says it clearly here that when they terminate, that they'll prorate. And if I'm making a recommendation, I think staying and making sure that we're covered for any new matters, because we know those things do come up, I think it would be prudent to make sure that we have someone approved today.
So if the board decides to go with interim, we have to get a new contract from Ingram, or new wording in the contract.
Well, that was my question. I don't know if you're in agreement with the wording in the contract. If you're saying just revise the language in the resolution and in the minutes, then that would be fine, but the wording doesn't match. The wording in the contract doesn't match what you're suggesting.
I think the actual question that we should be asking is, does the contract allow you to sever and to break off? Because then, you can make whatever motion you want and change that, and if you're good with the terms in terms of the contract, then you can change the wording, and you'll still be able to terminate and be able to, or hold on, whichever the board decides to do. But if you're looking to make sure that they have that wording within their contract, that's got to go back to them.
Why don't we do this? I will make the motion to go out for RFP, and we can vote on that first.
How does the board vote? Feel for that? Feel on that?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, Mr. Bartels, you'll put that out for us? All right, with a turnaround time of not so long? What do you usually give?
The
Weeks?
minimum turnaround time is 5 business days that we would put out. I would suggest a little bit longer than that.
Right.
But I think we can get the process done within a month.
Okay, that will put us past our next meeting, though. Any possibility of getting some feedback before?
We could have them back before the next meeting. I'm not sure if we want to have presentations at the next meeting from the firms. That might be a little tight time frame.
I think that's where it takes time, is bringing them, and that's where your time is going to be tight.
I think that we can probably complete the process and get the responses back by the next board meeting,
Right.
but I don't know if we're going to have enough time to kind of go through the different firms.
Okay, well, I think it's the quickest you feel that we could do it is the best thing for us. So if that's the time, if that's what you're recommending a time frame, I'm assuming everybody's okay with that.
Yes, by the next meeting, we could have firms, and then if we have to call a meeting to interview people, we can do that. We
And
call
how-
meetings all the time.
How do we get this word out?
I would issue the RFP, probably put it in the newspaper, as well as sending it directly to specific firms that we're aware of.
And what newspapers do we put that out in?
Probably put it out in Newsday. I mean, we can put it out in any of the approved newspapers, which should be later in the agenda, but Newsday is probably the best one for something like this.
And if anybody has any specific firms they'd like us to send it to, they can get in touch with you and,
Yeah, absolutely. I have a list of a number of firms that different school districts use, so, I mean, I have that. If somebody has a different firm, I'd be more than happy to send it to that
Okay.
firm as well.
all right, so we're on the language now, on what to do about the language.
I would propose that we hold off on the appointment if the language doesn't match, and we get the language changed, and then we appoint them, if we can't say interim now.
But we need to appoint today.
As interim. That's what was my suggestion, which is why we talked about it in executive session. But it went on the agenda with that language.
Right.
because this is the appropriate place to raise these issues, not outside of the meeting. So nothing gets changed unless the full board agrees to it, not one person.
And if you address it at this
Okay.
point, we're now in the conundrum we find ourselves in.
I'm still concerned if something happens tomorrow, what we're going to do. I know we can go out and find someone, but that's also going to take time. And I think we have to go with what we have today and go out for the RFP process. That's my opinion.
Agreed.
I disagree.
I think as long as we're under the understanding that we are not appointing anyone as our legal representation today, that it's, I mean, like, we have to appoint, obviously, someone. That I understand, so that we're covered.
Yeah.
But the appointment is not necessarily going to be a year-long appointment.
Correct.
That document attached to the reorganization has a year-long appointment on it.
It
That's
has
what
a
says.
severability right after the
There's a
appointment.
severability in any legal contract. You can fire an attorney anytime you want.
We never had that terminology in there before, to my knowledge, right, Mrs. Wong?
You wouldn't need it in there. It's an operation of law. You can.
I think
fire a
Ingerman is
lawyer
under the
anytime you want.
impression that we're going out to RFP, so that they put that in there to let us out of the contract, knowing that we were going to interview people. But it was confirmed with Ingerman that we would not have coverage starting today unless somebody is appointed. We've seen the way things go. I don't think it's a smart idea in the middle of what we're going through right now, with all the changes in the state and everything else, to not have counsel starting today.
We have counsel for anything that is open. Do you really think Ingerman Smith isn't going to represent us if we need them to?
There's no obligation for a law firm to cover us on a new matter if we have not signed or brought them on as a board.
The
Right.
new matter is the issue. Any new matter.
It's a new
Yes.
matter
What do we
issue.
do with a new matter if we don't have a firm?
Can we change the language to say interim in the document that was produced today?
Are you referring to the contract?
No,
I can't change,
the meeting, the agenda on the meeting.
you can make a motion to change, but that doesn't change the contract that has been written by Ingerman Smith. That's a contract written by them.
That's their letter of engagement, but we haven't signed the letter. We haven't
That is
approved the
correct.
contract.
But we would if we approved them today, regardless of what the agenda said, because that's the,
Right, but we're not approving them as our counsel for the full year, and that's what that document says. Their letter of engagement has them for the 2021-22 school year, and we would be appointing them as our counsel.
With a termination at any time, so it's not necessary. We could fire any attorney, like you said, in the next 10 days, and because of the wording of that contract, we're able to get out of the contract at any time after appointment. That's all we need to know. We have coverage, and we can get out of it.
That's
That's
fine.
all we need to know. And that's why their language is appropriate, because it's what we need on both ends. We need coverage today, and we need to be able to get out of it if we choose to do that once we go through the RFP
The
process.
interim language, if used, which would have been the appropriate language to use when we are not in agreement to appoint an attorney or a firm for the entire school year. That's what other boards do. They appoint interim doctors, interim clerks, interim everything. It's an interim if it is not permanent. That language reads that they are the lawyers. I understand that we can get out of it. I'm a lawyer. You can always get out of it. You can fire anybody you want to fire and hire anybody you want to hire. That's not the issue. The issue is that the language in the reorganization document is imprecise. And it was written that way by the attorneys because they want a letter of engagement that makes them the attorney for the year, and that's not what we're doing right now.
That's not what's understood, as just to
but you
point out,
can't,
that's not-
you can't argue the point that it does say that we're engaging them for the year with the bottom clause on there. It's still, it says two things.
If we never terminate, they'll cover us for the year. That's the way you have to look at it. It's our choice.
Unless you've made a decision as a board already that you're not going to go with Ingerman and Smith, then we need to be clear on that and make sure that's the clarity and then go out to RFP. But if you're saying that you haven't made that decision, you want to see somebody else, as I stated before, in my opinion, you don't want to have to go back and have to have another meeting to have them be put on an agenda to say they're going to be your full-time employee.
Why
This kind
not?
of covers you on both of that.
What would be the,
There's no
what's the
downside to
downside to
that.
having a meeting to appoint them as the attorney if we go with them permanently?
I don't, unless
Or
that's what
adding
the
it
board
to an
wants to do.
agenda.
I think it's if you already have the coverage, I mean, it states very clearly, and even within our conversations, I think they understand you're going out to RFP. So there may be a chance that they do not come back. It states very clearly here that the firm understands that the district, if they decide to terminate, I mean, they made it very clear. I think they're saving the time in terms of if you need to reappoint. I think this does both of those things all at once. Whether you want to have another meeting to appoint, certainly you could do that. But I think what their term states here is that if you decide to stay with them, then you don't have to reapprove and you continue on this agreement. And again, unless I have a different understanding that the board wants to terminate, and if that's the intent to terminate, then, I guess that's a different discussion for the board to have.
No, I believe our intent is to listen to what other firms offer and give us a choice of how we will move forward. Not starting with the language of termination, and including Ingerman. I'm torn. I don't know what we can legally do on changing the language in this form without having an attorney represent us tomorrow.
Well, could we go through the rest of what we need to appoint and reach out to them and see if they'll change the language?
Can we? Is that what say the board? Like, is the board interested in reaching out to see the change, or just keep it the same?
I'm content with the way it's written here, that the firm understands that if the district decides to terminate the services herein prior to June 30th, the retainer set forth herein will be prorated to the date of termination. I'm okay with that, with the understanding that we're going out to RFPs, including Ingerman, just like you stated, Mr. O'Shea.
I agree. I believe strongly that we should have coverage day one of this school year, and we are able to get out of it at any point in time. I think we're splitting hairs over terminology, but we are able to get out of this. But we're also able to get the coverage, and I think that's the most important thing. We have to be smart about this, and I think that that's the right way to do. So the way it's worded to me, perfectly fine.
Eric?
Now, just as a question, when you spoke to Ingerman, they made it quite clear that if we had something come up tomorrow and we had not appointed them today, that they would not cover
Correct.
the new case.
Correct.
So in an attempt to keep us as their client, they're not willing to help us with new matters
I don't think it's a
unless we
matter of
sign this
willingness.
agreement.
I don't think that's fair. I think that if you're, knowing that you're a lawyer, if you are bound by four corners of a document, there's no obligation for them to cover us any point if we do not appoint them as our
That
attorney.
is different from what she just asked. What she just asked was,
We
did
will
they
not be
say
covered.
they will not cover you?
We will not be covered.
That's different than
If this is not-
obligated.
If we do not approve them as our attorney, we do not have coverage. We will have a lapse
They are
of
not
coverage.
obligated. Will they do it, is the question she asked. And you're saying they said no.
They will not cover us.
They said no. That's different than obligated to.
But Christine, you know that they're not obligated to even consider doing that.
That's
Why
fine.
would they do that?
Because they want to keep us as a client.
They know that we're going out to RFP, so, I mean, it's very clear where we're at.
It really isn't, or we wouldn't be going around in a circle. If
We're
the
going around in
language
a
was
circle because
precise,
we're
could have had
arguing
it
about
done.
one word. That's why we're going around in a circle, because I think we all agree that it would not be smart for our district to not have coverage for any new matter, which seemed to pop up. So I think we all agree about that, but we're splitting hairs over a word that you're insisting is being used that's not necessary.
It is being
Because we
used,
have-
and it's precise.
It's just different opinions, Tara. It's just different opinions.
But if
And
that's the- if
my
that's the
concern
thing
on
that's
the whole
holding it
matter
up or
is,
not-
will we have coverage or not?
We will not have
And
coverage.
you've spoken with them, and they said that they will not cover us for new matters after today.
Correct.
After
They will
yesterday.
not cover us. Other
Ingerman's-
people could.
But then we would need to have that in writing today,
Correct.
Correct.
because our coverage ends today.
On new matters, yes.
On new matters. We have no problem with old matters, and they are obligated by law to take care of all our old matters. And my concern is losing that. I have a concern of that. I don't particularly care for the way it's written, because it says you're hired for the year, and with the caveat on the bottom, I understand that. I'm unhappy with the language, but more concerned about the coverage.
And the prorating for the retainer, how is that going to work if they're gone in 3 weeks? They're going to give us the money back?
Well, we don't pay them.
Robert, we
Do
don't pay them
the
in full, correct?
$25,000 right up
No,
front?
we pay them on the back end of the month, so. they'll
So
bill
the
us for
retainer
month
isn't
at the end of the
upfront,
month.
Robert? They don't get the $24,000 and work
upfront.
off of it?
No.
Okay.
And prorated that I know of, everything's up, they charge everything in the beginning and nothing in the end.
Right.
Sorry about that. All right, let's, unfortunately for me, I will decide that we'll keep the same language because we seem like to be at a dead end. It's not going anywhere. So how does the board vote? You did?
Are you, that's,
Erica?
I'm okay with leaving it as it's written now, as the clause is in the contract that we can terminate if we so decide to. I think could be in trouble if we didn't have legal coverage. I think that's important to make sure that we have that.
As point of order, if you're asking for a vote, you just need to move the motion, and then you take the vote. I don't know if that's what you had intended.
Well, you need a motion to go out for an RFP.
We did that
Did it?
already.
Okay, and
We
then,
agreed.
and then if you're agreeing as written, then it's just part of your,
Right.
The
So I
rest.
believe that,
so you don't need a separate motion for that. You're just approving
No.
everything that's within there as part of it, unless you're changing it.
no, we're going to.
You're gonna leave it?
We're going to leave it the same,
Okay.
for lack of a way out.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns on the rest of the agenda? I do have a question on the, all right, we have appointment of school district health professional and appointment of school district physician. Can you explain each of the positions and what, we've never hired a school district physician in my years on the board. What, for that money, what are we getting from that? What services do they provide the district?
We have had school district physicians appointed before.
I think it's the district medical officer that you're referring to
Okay.
for the BOCES contract that was
For the
mentioned.
new BOCES
Right.
contract.
I'm going to try to get it right, Robert, so if you, I know because you've worked mostly with the, so you're getting services across the board in terms of whatever the medical need may arise through BOCES. So they'll have a physician come. I think there's a number of days that they would be visiting in districts to be in-house. They could also do concussion protocols, any other medical decision-making or any advisement that we would need. We would have our nurses also be able to communicate with them as well. It's kind of, at least the package that we are looking to get would cover us in terms of all the gamuts of the medical issues that would come out throughout the school year. And how many days do we get in district? Do you remember?
15 days in district.
15 days where they're physically here, but they're always accessible to us to be able to at least work with our nurses, work with our staff.
It would be
And-
15 days in district, 8 meetings. So if we wanted to bring the board meetings, it would be available for 8 separate meetings
Oh,
in
that's
the
right.
evening.
That's right.
They'd be available for consults for any of the nurses, any issues that come up, anything that they need to check and ask about. The difference is with the school physician, we have a regular separate doctor appointed.
Yeah, that was mine.
That person has been appointed annually for the last several years. That person really has just been responsible for assisting with questions from CSE meetings and for the AED machines, the verification of and authorization of the AEDs around the district.
And not with the athletic trainer? Is that person linked to that?
I'm not sure
No, not with,
they're linked to the athletic trainer.
the athletic trainer needs to be trained on it in terms of recertifying. I think that needs to be a physician.
What
Is it-
happens? Go ahead.
Sorry. Is it a pool of doctors, a particular doctor? Who are they affiliated with in terms of their practice or hospital? Do we have more information?
With the BOCES service, they have 2 separate doctors. We would be assigned one, but would have the availability of both. Each doctor is assigned to a different, or has credentials with different hospitals. One is Mount Sinai, South Nassau, and the other is Combs. So we have that separate ability to contact either one of those doctors. I mean, we would have one that we would normally call on an ongoing basis, but we would have 2 that we could contact.
Would these physicians be advising us, should we continue with the problems we've had with the pandemic,
Yes.
Would they be overseeing that process for us?
They would oversee and they would provide advisement for protocols, continuing existing protocols, changing protocols, working with our staff, the nursing staff, other administrators, and working with Nassau County Department of Health for any contact tracing or any additional issues that would come up.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody okay with that? I mean, we're going to approve it. No other questions, I should ask. All right. I think that's all I had. Anybody else have any questions on the rest of the appointments? No? I have a motion to approve, well, yeah, that's not on the sheet. I have one other issue. I would like to take out, I gotta find the page before, I'm sorry. 16. I'd like to remove from the block the authorization to use district credit cards for the time being. Should I tell you why?
Yeah.
My son's name's on it, and I can't approve it, so
So you have to abstain from that part?
I'll have to abstain from that part.
So you're not
So you're not taking it off?
You're not taking
I'm
it
not
off
taking, I'm
completely,
taking it
you
off
just
for
want to
the
segregate it
vote,
for the approval.
and we'll put that back.
Separate.
Back.
And you're just removing the fleet card portion of it?
If that's what you're
Yes.
telling me we can, that's fine, yes.
Just the fleet card.
Can I have a motion to accept?
And,
Go ahead.
Can you have a second and approve that
I'm sorry.
removal of that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, can I have a motion to approve the remainder of the agenda?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, with the exception of what I previously noted.
Can you make a motion and second it and vote on that one item separately then?
Can I get a motion to approve the use of the district fleet or gas credit cards?
No, we're talking about the Ingerman Smith. You need to remove that because trustee Farazani is not voting on that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so you need to make a motion to remove that Ingerman Smith and then vote on that separately.
Okay. Can I have a motion to remove the
It's actually
the
not
appointment
removed, it's
of a
accepted.
district? Go ahead.
That's fine. You're good. Sorry.
District counsel from the agenda for the time being, or?
We're just voting on it separately,
You're voting
right?
on it
We're not really
separately.
removing it.
Yeah, so
Right.
you're not you're
So-
technically not removing it. I think the
Terminology?
Yeah.
terminology is to.
Okay, except you're approving everything else together,
You're
so you
approving
do need
everything
to
else
remove
with the
that.
exception of. Can I get the
Okay.
motion to approve everything else with the exception of, and you have to call out that specific part?
Okay.
And then once you do that, you could come back to it and then vote on that
Right.
separately.
Can I get a
Sorry.
motion to approve the items for action, taking out, I'm going to take out H because that's on the H, and the use of the district fleet card by district employees.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the items for actions as listed on the agenda,
So moved.
minus?
Didn't we just do that?
Yeah.
We just
I'm
did
sorry.
everything but, now we need to do the attorney, and then we need to do the credit card.
Can I have a
Right.
motion to approve, did we vote on that? Oh my God.
You need to approve the attorney first, and then need to approve
Separate?
the...
Okay.
Correct.
All right, can I have a motion to approve the appointment of the school district attorney, letter H on the agenda?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
So is vote 4-1?
Yes. Can I
Now
have a
the
motion?
fleet card.
Can I have a motion to approve the use of the school district gas card, district fleet or gas card?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain? Aye. And we are done with this part of our meeting.
Are you retiring into exec?
We are retiring into exec to discuss.
You have to ask for a motion.
Can I have a motion to retire into exec?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'll text you after. It shouldn't take long.
Let's see, you didn't answer. Wait.
Welcome. I'd like to call to order the July 1st, 2021 Public Works Session of the Rockville Center Board of Education. Welcome if you're joining us. It is a public works session, and nobody's here to join us, except for you out in wherever. I guess we're not going to an exec. Possibility of an executive session we've already taken care of. President's remarks. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the support of the board members for electing me president for this year. I will strive to do the best I can, and we work together to make great things happen for Rockville Center. I'd also like to add this, the president's remark on the agenda. I'd like it, if it's going to stay there, I'd like it to be board members' remarks, because I think that if I have the opportunity to speak, that every board member should have the opportunity to speak.
Okay.
And I'm going to make it a little longer than normal, unfortunately. I'm going to speak a little bit today. I'd like to hear if any of my fellow board members have a goal that they'd like to achieve for the 2021-2022 school year. Just to bring it up, it's something to strive for. Not that we will definitely achieve it, but we'd like to try for things and, give us some sight going forward. One of my main goals this year will make every effort to bring our students back to school in September with no masks and barriers, as long as it's considered safe by the authorities. Our students are suffering academically, socially, and emotionally from the restrictions over the past year and a half, and we need to try and bring education back to pre-COVID times. With that, I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Ed pen a letter to the governor and our elected officials that we are in favor of ending the restrictions placed upon school districts and bring more normality back to our children's life, as long as we can do that safely. How do my fellow board members feel on something like that?
I would second that.
You have to move it and then second it.
What was
I
that?
made a motion, so somebody has to carry it and then second it.
So we need to have somebody,
So moved.
Christine seconded it.
Second.
All right, so we'll work on that letter and send that out as soon as possible. I think it's a great idea for us to get behind. Other school districts have done it, and just to let the governor know that there is support to bringing life back to normality as long as it's possible. My goal I'd like to present to the school district is to have a curriculum forum sometime early in the year, and just so parents and the community can have an understanding of how we develop and implement and oversee the curriculum that's created in our school district. Give the community a chance to speak about it and understand where we're going and how we're going in a certain direction. And also, so they have an opinion and they have a buy-in on this. So I think that's very important. We had some issues this year that the community raised, and I think to be out transparent and out with everything is a great thing for us to do. That's my goal for this school year. And would anybody else like to?
My goals remain the same as they were when I ran for the Board of Education, which was accountability, communication, and transparency. The community takes pride in our schools, and the parents have vested interest in these children's education. This community has historically shown deep support for our schools and has taken an active role in ensuring that the curriculum taught to our children reflects the values of our community, and our children have access to enrichment, arts, sports, and robust extracurricular activities and programs. In addition to their time, the community supports these efforts by paying taxes, taxes that fund the salaries of the superintendent, the administration, our teachers, and our staff. By electing us to this board, the community has placed their trust in us to protect their children and ensure that they're receiving the education and opportunities for which many move to this district. Simply put, they rely on us to hold the administration accountable, to correct matters that do not reflect the community, and to support and encourage those that do. To be clear, I do not view my role as a cheerleader that will blindly support programming that is inconsistent with our community values. In turn, this board must be accountable to the community. We should conduct our meetings and create agendas that give real notice to the topics to be addressed. We need to communicate our intentions by taking public votes so the community is informed about where we stand individually and collectively as a board in important matters related to the education of our children. As I have said before, listening to public concerns and reevaluating our practices, policies, and procedures does not mean that we are not supportive of our administration's teachers and staff. We should and will continue to applaud and support our wonderful educators and staff, but it is only through introspection and analyzing data, openly communicating with parents and students, that we can recognize our shortcomings and take the necessary actions to improve our district. Working together, we can learn where we need to adapt and grow and continue to provide the children of Rockville Center with the stellar education that is the hallmark of this community. I also want to welcome Erica Messier to the board. I've worked with Erica on PTA Council. She's proven to be an innovative thinker and problem solver. Her results-driven approach and dedication to quality education for our children will be a tremendous asset to our board. Welcome.
Welcome, Erica. Mrs. Barry?
As far as the district goals setting, I think that process needs to be collaborative between the board and the district administration so that we have clear goals that we are all in agreement where we want the district moving forward, our vision and mission for the district in the upcoming year. So I would like personally to have a conversation in an upcoming meeting with district administration can chime in terms of setting district goals. As far as your email to us asking us for a goal, Mr. O'Shea, I thought it was for the board itself, so I'll speak to that as well, if that's okay. I think it's important that we set the tone of mutual respect and very, very clearly respecting one another. We can have differences of opinion up here, but I do think it's important that we show each other personal respect, that we are all equal members up here. We all have one vote, and we have to collaborate and problem solve, just like we did before. I thought we did that very respectfully, and we can have differences of opinion, but I would ask that we all just really show that respect that we all deserve as human beings and as board members and as members in this community. That's really all I have to share today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like sitting over here. My goal for the year really hasn't changed either since I started on the board, and it's about the children of the district. I definitely think that my immediate goal is to help all of our kids overcome what they've been through this last year and a half. It's an immediate concern. I think our administration, our teachers, our staff has done an amazing job of offering as much as they could despite what was taken away from us. I appreciate everything that's been done. I think we have such a strong foundation here, and we have an amazing team of people. But the windup is that some of our students really suffered personally and academically from this experience, and I don't know that we know the full scope of that just yet. So I think we have to keep our finger on the pulse of how our kids are progressing and doing, making sure that they are ready for their next chapter, wherever they are going, elementary, middle, or high school, or if they're moving on to college. But I really want to get our focus kind of back to the kids and growing the district in the direction that we intended to when we hired our superintendent. I was reflecting the other day about the first time we brought Mr. Chang here in February of 2020, before everything started. We had such an amazing conversation, site visit here, and had so many lists of things that we wanted to accomplish. And a lot of that did get put on the back burner because we had more immediate issues at hand, and I would like to return to some of those exciting things we spoke to him about when we hired him and when we were onboarding him, and just make sure that our kids are well but prepared to move on from this pandemic. I think it's been really hard. So that's my goal for the district. For the board, I agree, Mrs. Barry. I think the board members are best suited when we keep those focuses and we agree on them and things are not personal. So I really hope we could put our personal differences and our personal interests to the side, because we will function better that way, and we will make the right decisions by the kids of Rockville Center. Thank you.
I just wanted to start by saying that I'm grateful and humbled to be here today. Thank you to the community for your support and your confidence. I'm very excited to begin this journey. I'm a firm believer that high expectations drive success, that teams do not just work with each other, but for each other, and the end game should always be nothing short of excellence. Mr. Chang, Mr. Bartels, Dr. Sampino, Mrs. Hood, to the principals, the teachers, and staff, your success is my success, and your success is our success as a board. Ultimately, your success is our children's success. To the students of the Rockville Center School District, you are the focus of all that we do. Our work must be never-ending negotiation, as in we will strive to continually navigate, pivot, adapt, and persist to create the best educational experience that we can for you. Our collaborative success is marked only by your success. And this is day one, and I'm hoping we can make excellent happen. With regards to my goal for this school year, in general, I think both as a board and as a collaborative group, is to improve student achievement and academic performance by creating and sustaining conditions that support excellent and equitable teaching and learning. I would love, kind of how Mrs. Barry said, to talk about creating that shared vision. And obviously, I wasn't part of the hiring process with Mr. Chang, so I wasn't able to sit in on those conversations. But as we move forward and look at post-pandemic, being able to kind of have an opportunity to hit the reset button and really establish what matters to us as a school district, as a community, and work together to create the vision, to establish clear and concrete goals, and then to implement strategies and align resources to achieve those goals, I think is really what my focus is for the coming school year. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chang,
We're going right into the remark.
if that's what you want, yeah.
So
Or you-
my report.
Or you can have a
terms-
goal.
Oh.
Have a goal if you'd like. Or we can wait on that.
I think we, certainly in terms of goal development, I agree that's something that's consistent in terms of bringing my team together, and then also understanding the leadership through policy of what the board is looking to implement and provide for its students. So I strongly encourage that type of level of dialogue and to understand and hear the input of all the stakeholders that are on the ground and are able to kind of facilitate and put the charge and the energy into the school district where it should be. In terms of rather than a goal, I'll say what I'm looking forward to is to being able to getting back to a place where the normal happens again, where we as educators are able to focus on what level of impact are we having on a day-to-day basis, how does that grow, and what's the outcome that we want to see in our students. And when I say students, I mean each individual students to be able to thrive in a setting where they themselves and their abilities are able to continue to find success by incremental progression. And to get them to a place where they feel confident in the skill sets that they have, where they move far and above and beyond just the grade levels and matriculating through our school system, but to come out on the other end and to become that much more engaged and empowered as they look at their post-secondary opportunities. And that's a key thing that we want to be able to provide. I think our school district does a lot of good things. I think we've forgotten that because we've been in the midst of the pandemic. And even within the midst of it, I think our educators did not forget that and came in, day out, and delivered on their sole purpose of being an educator. Like I said, this is not just a career, it's a calling. So when you're in that calling, you give it all, and they've done an extraordinary job having to plan on multiple fronts and multiple platforms. We've seen it all throughout the year. To my administration, my wish is for us to come together and then put that brain trust into power and to put it into motion, to put those words and those impactful actions into practice, where it is truly about practice. And practice, to many one's points here, is that it's about reflection, and from that we get better. So that's things that we can continuously look forward to as a district. And ultimately, we want to be a place where we're completely proud of, and whatever that pride stands for, whether it's within our academics, our extracurriculars, our athletics, our performances, whatever that is, we want to be proud of what we're able to pour into it because we do it day in and day out. So that's what we want to look forward to.
Great. A report?
I'll go right into my report, Mr. President. This isn't going to be your typical report that you have in terms of many things that are going on in our school district. And luckily for us, the pandemic seems to have settled its course some bit. But what we have started today is the summer programming, which has been up and started. So we started day one. That will continue on throughout the remainder of the summer weeks. I know we're going to be off for 4th of July weekend, but we are all set, steady, and ready to go. And we are in the process again, starting our capital projects, going into all the things that our budget has allowed and afforded us to kind of put into place. We're also in a great position where we're looking at several candidates for some of the open positions up in our administrative level, which I hope to be able to present. Hopefully, don't hold me to the 22nd, but hopefully to be able to present some names to the board for approval on the 22nd moving forward. We had great 2 graduation ceremonies and moving up ceremonies throughout the district. Many of the board members were present, so I thank you for being there. And it was a great way to end off a year where we were able to celebrate our students and just focus key on their happiness and what they were able to accomplish throughout. So thank you for all and everyone's support. I thank you for the board support for getting us this far, and certainly to the community and to our staff. And that ends my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a gift on the agenda. Mr. Chang?
Yes, the gift was a donation because our students who were disadvantaged were able to compete in a virtual marathon. So it paid for the shoes and the shirts that were part of that virtual marathon.
Very nice. Can I have a motion to accept the gift?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you to the Tommy Brew Foundation. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the financial reports as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the receipts of financial reports as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve board actions? A? I'm sorry. B? A through G?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any questions?
I just had a quick question. Mr. Bartels, I noticed that Wilson School is not listed under D. Is there a reason?
I believe they had enough money within their account to cover the programs that they had requested for this year, so that's why they didn't need to provide any additional gifts from the PTA for this year.
Okay. They still have the program, though?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
And I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Obviously, no questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on July 22nd.